Okay. Hey, Jay. All right, so far so good. Where's Lee? We've been having some technical difficulties. We've been trying since one. For some reason, uh, I'm not seeing when Lee goes live for our chat. So there we go. Quick fix joined. I don't know why it wasn't showing me the thing. Let me, yeah, I've invited Quick Fix. View, go live with Quick Fix Recordings. Here we go. It says Quick Fix Recordings isn't able to join. It's so weird. Let me try this again. There we go. Accept, go live with Quick Fix Recordings. Hey, okay, we've got progress there. We made it happen somehow.
Oh my God.
I don't know what's
I,
happening. I'm seeing live videos
yeah,
come up because I saw that Daryl from Indie Week went live and I kept refreshing and yours wasn't showing up for some reason.
yeah, and somehow everybody could join either, but not, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, we're here now. That's good.
That's right. I mean, we're on rock and roll time, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's
We'll have to do. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Axel still wouldn't be here, so I think we're
that's
doing
right.
really well. So,
Oh yeah, we're well ahead of the game by Rockstar standards, right?
but yeah, I think just this dumb, boring thing. But don't forget to make me a collaborator on this after, so that it pops up on our page as
Yes.
well. Yeah, yeah. I've
Yes.
left two really random like videos of me going, "I don't know what's going on," like so people can hopefully. So that's a kind of an advert, I guess. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so happy belated release.
Thank you. Yeah. Congratulations to us collectively.
Yeah, how's it how's your feedback and everything going? Are you getting good feedback?
Yeah. Yeah. People like it, which is
Yeah.
interesting. It's surprising, not surprising. That's not the right thing to say. Um, we've discussed this during the whole process of making the record, and I was like, about halfway through making the record, I was like, oh, is this like a little too like too much of a bummer, too mid-tempo, etc. And
Yeah,
like, will people dig it? But like,
weird. It's weird you saying that now because now it's out. It feels like oh no, it's full of like it's like still full of like singles or it's still full of like do you know what I mean? It's full of like catchy songs. So in a way, I think maybe hopefully like or at least the people you're attracting of the ilk that can kind of either take music more on its own kind of like basis, if that makes sense. Like a kind of like, oh,
yeah,
this is what it is. Do I like it or not? And and that's kind of the end of it, rather than like a kind of set of expectations necessarily, other than hopefully this is good or interesting or nice or has good melodies or good production or whatever. And it's got all of that. Do you know what I mean? So I guess it's delivered on all the bits that you could do.
yeah. Well, it's like,
You've kind of stepped, you've stepped up the bar. I feel from like I was really impressed by the last record, which I'll hold up for people. Ah, I was really impressed. Get the bundle if you haven't got the first one. Get the bundle. But
yeah.
yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm going to do sales twice.
Yeah, that's
But
all
yeah,
right.
because I know
Pitch it,
you're not
pitch it.
going to, because you're too polite. So I know I've got to wedge it in. But yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by the production. I couldn't believe you did it on a phone when you like told me. That seemed insane.
Yeah.
But um, but I guess I've still not caught up with the fact that even we're doing this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? This still seems like a future like Johnny Mnemonic. Kind of.
Right. Well, yeah,
um,
and to be fair, like it sounds cool, like I did it on a phone, but at the same time, it's like by nature, phones for the most part now can do what laptops
anything a
do.
computer can do.
Uh,
Yeah, I know.
And in a lot of ways, they're somewhat more user friendly too, just because they're, it's kind of all the things a laptop can do, but for idiots.
Right,
Um,
yeah, yeah, I
and
guess.
and I'm technology wise a bit of an idiot, so it's just like in a lot of ways it's more challenging because um, you get less options, less subtlety, and all of that. In terms of like when you're doing mixing and
Hmm.
minute details and things like that. But those limitations are actually kind of helpful because you're not given the world of options of what you can do with something, so
Yeah,
you have to
I
make
think
it the best it can
limitations
be on its own.
limitations are so useful in like the modern age, especially when we do now have like just about every option. And I mean that's really cool because then you can still, there's still like even with the limitations that you have, it's still far more than I could do when I first made tracks on a 4-track tape
Yeah.
recorder or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you can still bring in like something orchestral, or you can, do you know what I mean? Like whereas back then it's like, what do I do? Like sample a classical, like play a classical record into the tape and try and get it the speed so it'd be in tune, and like hope that the notes work out. Do you know what I mean? Like there's, or do I go and try and find like people who play strings, which is probably harder than the first option. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
So
and
yeah,
that's the great thing about it. Like because we've talked about this. I've always been sort of in punk rock-ish bands,
mm,
like your sort of bass drums, guitar kind of bands, which I love doing, and I love playing live with people and the rawness of that. But songwriting wise, it was always kind of we were stuck in a what can we do in a room together. Whereas with this, like originally Blackout Orchestra was just going to be some acoustic demos. I was like, if I can download the equivalent of like a 4-track recorder, but
yeah,
digitally
yeah,
on my phone, and do some acoustic guitar and put some vocals over top, then awesome. I've got a way to do
yeah,
some
yeah.
demos.
Music, yeah, yeah,
And then just with MIDI and all the options and stuff, I've always loved um, classical music and particularly like movie scores.
right.
So suddenly I had the option to like, oh,
Leave
okay,
that
so I
in,
can do a
yeah,
bowed bass, add a couple of violins. Oh, here, let's add some cello in there. And suddenly I had like a full string section on songs that I never could have conceived of before.
yeah,
So then I'm learning music production, I'm learning how to arrange for strings. I'm like, my mind is blown, but it gives
yeah,
me the chance to do everything that I've always sort of heard in
yeah,
my head when I was writing, but that I could never translate. And when we were going into studios, time is money.
yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
all of the little experiments you wouldn't have had time to do. You had to keep it down to what
Yeah, a
works,
lot
what
of
you know works.
the overdubs on Smilex's first album Seven, like the cello and the piano and stuff like that, they were all done outside of the core session that kind of got all the actual songs together. They were all done in like little bits and bobs here and there, and kind of like, okay, that's then weaved into the mix later, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, like even like that, it wasn't even something we could really consider, like, oh, we've got, it was like 7 days in the studio or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like wash this out. Do you know what I mean? So like clock constantly ticking. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, so you say about like, so there's limitations, but they're kind of healthy because they're just like, they're not in the realm of excess, basically. Like you've still got a really broad palette that you can work with, but
Yeah.
it's just you can't get too anal about like the techie side of things that I guess can maybe slow people down in some cases.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I can't run a million plugins and I don't have unlimited tracks. Like I could technically add as many as I want, but in terms of playback,
Yeah,
after about 15 with no effects, it won't play back. And if I start adding some effects here and there or like EQ or anything like that, that slows it down even more. So you got to get creative with what you're using, what you're bouncing down to a single track at a time,
and
and
also
like
nailing it like on the way in as well, like to a degree you've got to get a lot closer to what you really want to have as the finished product, like down, and
Yeah, and I
also
don't have the I can't do 30 vocal tracks and comp the best one. You know, I can do maybe three, try to comp that together,
yeah,
and then delete two of them so that I can move on to the backing vocal track.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
it's not
but like
like you can go back if you go like, oh, maybe I kept the wrong one actually from this. Like, that's there is no wrong one now. It's gone. You know,
yeah,
this is the
but it
one.
keeps it fresh. Like it's the fact that I can't get too precious about um, a given song to some degree is like I'll focus on it, I'll try things, I'll see what works, but when it's done, it's done and I'm moving on to the next thing because I really just don't have the option to add or subtract more if I like what's there. So
And would you say that
it,
that affected? Because Beauty Sleep in a Strange Way, it came out like it hasn't come out so quick, but it came out of you fairly quickly. It felt like, compared to like I don't know how long you were making like the first album, but then the gap between that and when you'd kind of delivered the second album already is actually pretty small. It felt like to me.
yeah, well, I mean both of them were very quick processes. And I think a lot of that comes down to the having the ability to do the recording and being excited about the experimentation and learning home recording and things like that. It just I always wanted to try something, or I always had an idea like, oh, I want to try to. Uh, I've mentioned the tongues. What that really came out of was I was listening to Nas, who I went to go
Yeah,
see
yeah.
last night and was awesome.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, Nas and Wu-Tang yesterday. It was a brilliant
Oh,
show.
amazing.
Um, but
I've
so I
been
was listening to
watching
Nas and I
the
was
I've
really
been
digging
watching the
the,
Wu Tang thing like all this week, so that
oh
they
yeah,
like
yeah,
that would be a perfect gig to see around about now. I'd be throwing down money if they suddenly announced the UK.
yeah.
How many Wu Tang? Sorry, we'll get back to you honestly, but but for now, let's
Um,
just
yeah, no, it was a good chunk of them. Like they even had Young Dirty Bastard.
oh, cool, wicked,
Yeah, it was great. It was super cool.
awesome,
Um,
awesome,
but yeah, so I was listening to Illmatic a
yeah,
lot, and the whole idea wasn't going to be a song. It was just like that kind of menacing bass and snare heavy beat.
yeah,
I wanted to do something like that, just to see if I could reproduce something
yeah,
of a
yeah.
similar
Of
sound.
both, yeah, yeah.
And so that's where that beat came from. And then I was like, and he's got the piano on New York State of Mind, which is like sort of that dark menacing. So I was like, I'll try to do something like that with bass.
Right, yeah.
But when I picked up the bass, it ended up being like a Queens of the Stone Age kind of,
Right, yeah,
or
yeah.
highest like kind of bass line,
Yeah, yeah,
just by nature of what came out of my fingers, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so there you go. So there's the basis of tongues done right there, and that's just because I wanted to experiment with a sound.
Yeah.
So I just constantly wanting to do that experimentation in one way
Grace
or another.
actually,
Everything came out really quickly.
Grace actually commented the other day that you're a really good bassist. Like after listening to the
Ah,
record. So yeah. And I was saying,
I,
what was it that you used to do originally in Dearly Bereft and stuff?
well, so Dearly Bereft is a really funny. That's sort of accidentally where bass
Right,
came out of me. I was always a guitar player. I played a little bit of piano badly.
right,
Um, and with the Dearly Bereft, so I was me and my like BFF Mike, who's now in Voxomnia. We co-wrote most of those songs together musically, and I wrote the lyrics and vocal lines, and Anna
right.
sung them beautifully. But on the recordings, I played some guitar, some of the piano. I was doing all of that. But when it came down to getting a live band together,
Yeah.
Mike plays guitar, Anna was singing the songs beautifully. Our buddy Cyrus is an amazing keyboard player and piano
Right.
player,
So
like
it's like, oh, what
properly.
shall I do?
So I was like, well, I guess I'll play bass because we don't
Yeah.
have a bass player. So by complete accident, I started playing bass in that band. Then Morgan's other band, Starship Experience, they needed a bass player. So I, at that time, joined them to play bass. And then I became a bass player.
De facto.
Yeah, and it turns out I really love. There's something about the rattle that you feel in your gut of
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
live bass that was like super addictive, and I love
yeah.
groove. So I wouldn't consider myself a great bass player per se, but I love playing
No,
bass,
yeah.
and I definitely try to bring a little bit of that like soulful groove to
I
it
remember
as
when
best
I
I can.
saw I remember when I saw the Smashing Pumpkins at Wembley Arena on the back of like Melancholy. It's like right on the end, and
Yeah,
Filter with a support band. And this was like when Filter only had like that first album, Short Bus, out, and
yeah.
like Hey Man, Nice Shot, and stuff like that. And I remember saying at the time, like, I'd love to be in a band just like Filter, just playing bass. It just looks like, just like it's not so hard that you can't just kind of like do it and kind of lose yourself in kind of doing it and everything. But then it's like, yeah, I don't know. It just looked like the perfect job in a weird way. It's like,
Yeah.
it's funny because you see the Smashing Pumpkins doing everything they're doing amazingly, but I was like, oh, I'd really like to be the bassist in Filter. That looks like it looks like fun because you still get to do all the same venues. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's fantastic.
yeah. So anyway, so background to yeah. So you were saying about the production. So background to you'd said about tongues, and you were saying about the speed at which the album and your creativity and the experimenting and learning the tech. So
Yeah.
and like
Yeah,
these
that
were
it fed into the wanting to like songwriting was almost secondary to like learning these things. And to learn these things,
right.
I need to record some guitar. So I'd come up with something. And um yeah, so both of the records, and that's why the first record, I Will Want You and We Are Ghosts,
Hmm.
that is very, it's funny because like narratively, lyrically, it's very of one moment and one journey, and it's a narrative thread.
Yeah.
But musically, it's kind of all over the place. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of shoegaze, there's a little bit of piano pop, there's a little bit of
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
that, and that's because I wanted to try everything, because I was so excited about the options available to me.
Yeah.
And then this record was definitely more of like lyrically, I didn't have a specific narrative outside of knowing that I wanted it to be kind of dreamlike and
Hmm.
just how I feel in the moment. But I knew musically I wanted it to sound very to have that almost sort of like ghostly quality in
Right.
some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Ethereal.
So yeah, so it sounds. I feel like this is a more focused musical album,
Right.
despite and a little bit darker sounding, even though I was writing about a
Yeah.
happier time in my life.
Yeah. It's weird. I think the it's difficult, isn't it? Because they're both quite pastoral, but like I think this one's quite they're quite well represented by the covers, like in the way that if you do like listen to them, you do get more of this out than this out of this one, if you get what I mean. Like there's that this does kind of you get a big bunch of kind of like I don't know kind of soft petals and things like that, whereas with this you do get a bit of that kind of the crack of light through some dark or something. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think they're quite well represented by their artwork in that
yeah.
way. Like they, which is, I'm guessing that's planned, obviously, but it's quite nice when it comes together like that. I guess.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, it's part of the with the songs being kind of a snapshot of each moment. So with the first album being a breakup and getting sober and getting healthy and pulling myself back together, basically.
Hmm.
And this one more being of the I feel stable, I feel good, but there's still the day-to-day things.
Yeah, yeah.
I still have depression, I still have anxiety, and I still, we're living through the darkest timeline, basically. So like
Who
it's
wouldn't? Who wouldn't though?
and the artwork is very much of its time for each of those too, because not only are the song snapshots, but everything that goes along with it really is. So that first album, that cover, um, and the artwork on the back, that was through me, newly getting myself together, taking walks at the golden hour, exactly, and and those moments and those thoughts and everything.
Mhm.
And then this album is a little more, there's a little more sensuality to it, obviously. Yeah. You know, obviously it was like navigating this new relative. I'm like,
Yeah,
Morgan and I
totally.
have known each
Yeah.
other and dated on and off for 14 years, but this was like we had gotten together this time, becoming stable. We got engaged. We're also poly, so there's
Yeah.
still there's still drama, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, of course, yeah.
in our relationship and everything like that to some
Things to
degree,
navigate,
like
yeah.
stable drama, but exactly. So there is a sensuality to this album, but there's also um,
The tension
yeah,
inside
just
the sweetness, as Clarence Trent D'Arby once put it.
yeah, like so here's your the first album is building yourself back up to being a human being again. And the second album is very much like, here I am now. What does that mean? And not to get too esoteric, but of
Feeling
course,
all
by
these
nature.
human things.
Exactly, right? Like, so I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
struggling
So yeah,
against immediate
yeah, yeah,
threats. So what do I feel? Who am I now? Kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, when you live like a certain amount of life for certain. I think like once you get to a certain age, maybe some people
Oh, you're cutting out a bit
like
there.
like lots of experiences quite early, but I certainly feel like
Oh, you
once you've lived a chunk and you like make any kind of move to kind of get away from something that you were oh sorry, yeah, when you make any kind of move to get away from that you've had, and then you move to like, and then you're left, I got rid of all of that, what's left? The pot kind of thing. Are you getting that?
you're sorry. That was very
Is
choppy. You
it
broke
is
up
it
quite a
normal
bit there.
now? Is it normal
See,
now?
I can hear you now. It seems to be okay.
Okay, yeah. I was
Yeah.
just saying, whenever you make one of those kind of breaks where you like moving away from lifestyle of some kind and you make a distinctive break, then like, and you've shed all this stuff, you're left with this kind of like, okay, so I've shed all that stuff. So what am I left with here? What am I dealing with? Do you know what I mean? So I guess it's kind of that
Yeah.
process. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I mean, it's,
finding new ways to I guess like fill up your life in different ways. You know, I found myself becoming much more uh, much less inhibited, I think is the way that I'd say it. Whereas before, which is strange because you know you think of like drinking and drugs and all of that as someone going wild and not
sure.
having inhibitions because of that influence, but
Yeah, yeah.
instead it's more like having a better sense of myself. I'm more likely to like if I'm listening to a song in my headphones and walking down the street, I'll dance along to it and not care if I look silly. You know, I'll
Yeah.
go to all the shows and instead of like standing in the corner and being like, I'll be like, I'm digging this. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
shake my stuff a little bit. You know, and like just being
Yeah, yeah.
feeling more present in my life. I guess is what was the surprising result of all of that.
But yeah. Yeah, I guess there's maybe a stark clarity or something that probably helps with reinforcing, oh, this is here now, and do you know what I mean? So in that kind of
Yeah.
say, as opposed to say there being a very, like I don't know, like kind of haze over everything, blurring one experience into another, so they're all an experience but tied in with this other thing that's in your system as well, I guess, if you know what I mean. So I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm talking from the other perspective. But yeah. But yeah, so but yeah, back to the record. So have you got like, so there's eight obviously. Have you got any, are you now like, yeah, I'm kind of like a little sick of that song, certainly like that recording? And have you got any that you're like, oh, I'm still really, really, this one I'm really like listening to still?
Um, there's none of them that I'm like sick of, which is shocking the amount of time that I've uh, that I've spent having to listen back to them and mixing and checking masters and things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it's hard to pick favorites. Because they're like my kids.
yeah. Of course, yeah,
There's things I love about all of those songs. I think there's certain ones though. I think Go Slowly. It wasn't the first thing I wrote for the record, but it was early on in the process, and it really captured the haze that I was looking for of that sort of like when you just wake up from a
yeah,
dream
yeah,
and everything's
yeah,
still like vivid from the dream, but you're also realizing that you're now part of waking life and like I think it
yeah, yeah.
sonically it really captured that and kind of set the tone for what the rest of the album thematically became.
Right, yeah,
So I still really love that. Um, uh, Flowers, I like that it's a little mini opus. It started out of a beat and playing around with the beat, and it sounded almost Björkish to me in that it was a little volcanic and
yeah,
bubbly. Um,
yeah. Right.
Getting to add some strings over top of that, but at the same time, like it's kind of got an almost Sufjan Stevens singer-songwriter song at the core of
Right.
it. Um, I like how all of that came together. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're writing and recording, it's like there's no grand plan for that. It's just like I was adding things here and there, and I was like, oh, I'll add a guitar part over this beat and see how it sounds, and then like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll start with some strings, the way that it surprises me. They become what they want to be, that like song wise,
Right. Yeah.
sort of out of my control. And if it works
Yeah.
out, it works out, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's one of the ones where it came together, and I was like, yeah, that worked out. That one worked.
Yeah. Wicked. Yeah. I mean, that's proving to be a favorite with like most people seem to be coming back, which is the on the aborted attempt at a live chat thing. That was actually what we'd kind of chosen as being like the kind of centerpiece or kind of earmark kind of, well, I guess the centerpiece is the process, but like the one that we were kind of sending as like this represents the album
Yeah.
for us or whatever. So it's nice that when the album's launched, that's the one that people are feeling like coming back, and it has become kind of, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah, it's really unintentionally, but has all of the elements from other songs in the record in that it has the sort of more electronic beat. This is much more a sort of a beat-driven record. It's not trying to sound like live drums like the first record
right, yeah,
as much. It's very specifically a little colder and a little more electronic.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
also has the acoustic element because I think that's this is a much more acoustic kind of record, but it also then has the bombastic string section which comes up throughout the record as
yeah.
well. And I think it really does. It's like a little 3 minutes of here's the sound palette of the record in a lot of
Right,
ways.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I think it's overall the record has a really nice mix between like that organic or for want of a better description, rustic thing, but also with the the modernist kind of approach, whether it's cut up vocals or up against the beat on the one I can't pronounce or
Neurophobia.
yeah, that one. Yeah, well done. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this, for those who are unaware, because I wasn't aware, I liked the word when I found out what it meant, is
Yeah.
fear of dreams.
Fear of
Fear of dreams. Oh, you're frozen.
dreams, right? Yeah. Oh, I'd like more, being honest. I don't dream
Oh, you
enough.
froze for a second there, but you're back.
Yeah, yeah. I was just saying I'd like more dreams, being honest. I don't dream enough. I'd like a few more at the moment, being honest. I sometimes wake up and like, I don't remember having a dream. But then sometimes I do have one and I'm like, oh, ugh. They wake up at 5 in the morning going, oh no, not that. Uh, but yeah,
Well,
so
it's interesting. I don't. I'm someone who, in a similar way, I don't dream, or at least don't remember my dreams very often. When I do, th- they're always weirdly haunting, but not haunting in like an epic way. It's
right,
haunting in like reality slightly askew kind of way.
Right.
Where it's whether it be like dreams about people that I have been in past relationships with, or the other night I had the strangest dream, which was just I was hanging out at a bar with my ex, but apparently we were still dating, and the bartender put shots in front of us, and I took a shot, and then it dawned on me a couple seconds later, I'm like, wait, but I'm sober, and then I woke up from that dream.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like that feeling of like it felt like reality, even though it was a dream when I
Yeah.
first woke up, where I felt like
Yeah.
this deep sense of shame and confusion about like
Yeah.
the automatic reaction. So it was like it's one of those things where it's like it haunted me for the rest of that morning, but it also was not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't being chased by zombies. There was nothing surreal about it. It was just very, again, reality just slightly off kilter, like something slightly off
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
my own waking life, which I think is scarier.
I had this weird dream once where I was playing a gig and I realized I was playing a gig and I was playing this gig and then suddenly I realized, ah, it's Smilex on the stage. I'm playing a Smilex gig. Obviously I hadn't done this in like, so I was like, I can do anything I want. Woo! And like just started like going mental and going absolutely crazy and stuff and really and then I woke up and I was like, oh, I haven't played a Smilex. I haven't played one in ages. It's quite gutting for a little while. So yeah. But yeah, it's just the like suddenly I was like, oh no man, all bets are off now kind of thing. But yeah, the last dream I had was really weird. It had a plane. It was really epic and filmic. It was like massive plane crashed down.
Oh,
It was kind of close enough that you
you
kind of
froze
saw
for a
where it
second there.
was and the
Yeah.
big explosion, and then debris was like kind of flying our way. I was only telling you about it anyway. It doesn't really matter. You're not. It's probably
Oh,
unnecessary.
yeah, you're cutting out.
Yeah, it seems like it's gone really weird.
It's a little choppy. You seem to be back now.
Oh, okay,
Oh, nope.
that's right. We won't bother talking about the dreams anymore. No, yeah, it really goes, isn't it? Um, yeah. So anyway, I was. I don't know. Do you want to do a track by track, or does that seem? I don't know if the internet gods will allow us to go track by track.
Um, I mean, we can try and see how
Okay,
far we get.
let's
And,
try it then. Okay,
worst case, we got a little mystery.
so I guess without it being so, let's not make it too boring because hopefully you're going to have to discuss this record many times. So on each, just give us either a lyrical or a musical kind of just the first thing that kind of pops into your head about this. About kind of like whether it be a lyrical thing or a music thing or whatever it might be, a detail about the recording of it or something that's what the lyrics happens to be about or whatever kind of goes first into your head on each, whatever you think first. So yeah, slowly.
All right, so for Go Slowly, again, it was very much a tone setting for the record in that it's between that sleep and awake feeling. Um, and lyrically, I think it describes well there's a certain feeling of hesitance coming from that, big epic breakup and crawl back from the last record. This was sort of the tentative steps of like a new romance, and you're sort of getting into it, but you're also still kind of stuck in that other headspace, kind of a million miles away, while also wanting to be present in the moment at the start of
Yeah,
something
yeah.
new.
And
And
the new
yeah,
record, I guess.
well, exactly. It works out perfectly. It's almost like I planned it that way, and I wish I had that much forethought.
And then bury it.
Oh, that's interesting on a couple levels. So bury it. I mean, it's largely about, which I think has happened to a lot of us a lot lately, is finding out your heroes are, uh, to put it politely, flawed.
Mm.
Um, I think we've all learned a lot about a lot of people that maybe we have admired who have turned out to be really crappy human beings. Um, and just sort of coming to terms with that. I
Sure.
went through a period of mourning. One of my favorite artists who, I won't get into it too much here, but they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
some abuse allegations come out about them, and it really, some people can separate the art from the artist, but to me,
Uh-huh.
especially with like a confessional artist, it can be hard for me to enjoy the message when I don't trust the messenger anymore. So it kind of came out of that.
Yeah,
And on a completely different plane, I mean, it also there's a lot of musically. I'm really into. There's a great sort of desert rock band, um, Yawning Man, who have these great guitar sounds. So it's kind of mixing that with my love of like latter day Leonard Cohen.
right.
Just
Yeah,
trying to put those together musically, and that sort of the idea that sparked the experiment. And
yeah,
so you can
yeah.
hear me doing my best Cohen
It's
impression at
funny
the
that you
beginning
say
of that
that as well
song.
because the
Sorry?
lyric definitely it's that kind of uh, like the fallen hero kind of thing to it. But it's pretty. It could be interpreted in a many kind of different ways for different people. Really, like for some people, it could be about like a relationship, familial or friend or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's got quite a nice like you definitely get the message, but it's not so hardcore specific that it
Yeah,
doesn't have
and the sentiment
different
isn't
applications.
necessarily, yeah, the sentiment isn't necessarily specific anyway. It is really just very much about like when you lose something that meant something to you and moving on from that,
Yeah,
a little jaded but determined to move forward kind of thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's like every relationship ever that
Sure,
ends.
yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. So tongues then. I mean, we already talked
Tons.
about the music a bit anyway, so I guess
Yeah, that one's
what made you write such a saucy song, sir?
well, I mean, the feel of it was very like, kind of swaggery and sexy. And we had a song on the last record which is about like getting into a relationship that you know is going to end badly. And this
Right.
is more about like kind of the opposite. You're getting into a relationship that everybody says is going to end badly, but that you don't think will. Um, and some of that is inspired by Morgan and I. We have a past that was off and on, and in our youth we were not exactly great to each other in a lot of ways. So all of our friends being like, "Oh, that person again, like you
Right.
shouldn't get back involved with that person. Remember how it went last time?" But we're not. I'm not saying you should give everybody a
Sure, yeah.
fifth and sixth chance by any means, but for some reason it worked for us. This time,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
timing was right.
But yeah, and also people change over a long period of time, don't they? So, there's
Yeah.
a lot to be said for that. Yeah, it'd be awful if we were all judged on everything that we ever did when, we were young and dumb. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you don't
but
stay arrested in that place, you're like,
yeah,
you know, I think people deserve the benefit of the doubt if they show progress, period.
yeah, yeah, always, yeah. Otherwise, what's the point in them trying?
Right.
But yeah, okay, so Unfound.
Yeah, unfound. I mean, that's very much. I had this friend, like, it was a very intense and short-lived friendship. It was this girl moved down from Winnipeg, went to my high school. It turned out like we hit it off immediately. She gave me a mix CD with Velvet Underground and Fugazi and all this stuff, and no one else in my high school was. Yeah, no one else in my high school was into that kind of thing, right? Like, I grew up in
Yeah, yeah.
um, the suburbs, so it was and we just really connected. She was there for maybe a month, and then she moved away, Um, she kept moving from place to place, but I always was staying at the same address. So I kept getting letters from her that were weird collages, interesting rants, just beautiful poetry.
Yeah.
Always very sad though. And
Right.
eventually, the letters stopped coming, and I always wondered sort of what happened to her. And I think of our parallel paths, like particularly where I am now, where I got myself together, and I'm in a good place.
Hmm.
I got sober. I got, and thinking about her, I have no idea what happened to her, but she definitely seemed to be going, down a dark path
Right.
at the
Yeah. Yeah.
time, and just thinking about how we had the highest hopes, and how those
Yes.
paths kind of diverge, and yeah, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
really quite cathartic.
Where are you now? Kind of letter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hey, hey, Johnny Park. Do you remember that Dave Grohl called that just because he thought about that old mate that he had and thought, wait, what are you at now?
Yeah.
So long that. That's cool. Yeah. But yeah, cool. Yeah, and that's got that one always reminds me of the well, actually, it's funny the better stuff off of Smashing Pumpkins' Adore record, by which I
Yeah.
mean the stuff that doesn't quite. I mean, I like all of it, but like there's some that you can only really listen to in a certain mood. Whereas there's some on that album like front loaded anytime and it's good. And and that and some of the rest of the record kind of reminds me of those parts of that record to a degree, which is a big
That
compliment. Yeah, yeah,
that's one of my favorite records of all time, and like in a lot of ways, we get comparisons to the Smashing Pumpkins, and I think because part of that is I have a high voice, and we're
right,
definitely our sort of bread and butter is '90s-ish rock of some kind or
sure,
another. Um, and it's funny because I don't think of Smashing Pumpkins as like in a huge influence on music that I make now, but when
sure,
I look at the DNA of things, this is like Adore is all over this record in
right,
that it's very similar in the melding of electronics and acoustics.
right, yeah,
Um,
sure,
Another thing with Unfound that I think of is like the beats and the layering of the beats is very like I love Tom York's solo albums, and particularly that first
right,
record, The Eraser. Some of the way that the beats are kind of glitchy and things like that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
where his voice is still so organic and beautiful over top of it. And I
right,
think I've
yeah,
always really loved that melding of things that are electronic, and beat heavy, but still feel very like natural and
yeah,
from flesh and bone.
yeah. I feel like your record benefits from the experiments that they've made in a strange way. I feel like yours hits the nail on the head in places where they kind of ended up kind of like points. I don't know. I don't want to say losing me, like certainly stretching me, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
um, with both of those artists, they both put out such a lot of music, especially once they phase of their kind of creativity, which ended up that you ended up hearing like quite a lot of like similar stuff from that artist. So I feel like Radiohead kind of like wore me out a little with you know the period that they did that thing for like a long time. Do you know what I mean? And the Pumpkins, I think by the time you kind of like if you were super enthusiastic getting on board the melancholy train, there's a real there that I challenge anyone to not be a bit tired out from it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think of that record as like that was them. Sort of like they kept progressing and wanting to do something different, and that was them trying to
Mm-hmm.
branch out. And the backlash to it, to some degree critically, and definitely from fans, and
Yeah.
Billy Corgan's uh, trying to be polite, his very contrary
Billious.
personality.
It's billishness, yeah, yeah.
Billishness, so he's very reactionary. And I feel like so much after that was him trying to like either prove that they were still the Pumpkins machine that they were before, or
Right,
that they can do even something even more out there and it still be the Pumpkins and,
right,
screw you to everyone who doubted them. And I think that was
yeah.
almost the
And
last
if it
time that
even
they were
doesn't
like really
have the
sincere.
pumpkins in, and even not having any of the pumpkins in it, we can still do that. Like I can do it like that. It's like, can
Yeah.
you though? Okay. But yeah,
That was the last time that they didn't feel somewhat contrived, I think. And I mean, there's stuff that I like after that to degrees, but that was the last time it felt pure, I guess.
right, yeah. I'm still really into Machina. I can't like both Machina 1 and 2, so like it just yeah, they but then after that, I don't know, it's just pumpkins, isn't it? I do like that the Dice record's pretty good. If you just want a good rock album.
Yeah. And
It's
there's
like
I
a
mean
good
there's things to be said for I've dived deep into the post reunion
mm,
discography and I there's a lot to like there. But often
sure.
it does feel like um it feels much more it feels less intuitive. It feels more plotted and planned as
Right,
opposed
yeah.
to sort of just what came out of you at the time. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's like a little less immediate for that reason. The lyrics maybe strive for poetry, whereas before they were a little more natural and plain spoken.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Things like that. It's not bad, but it rubs me a little bit the wrong way compared to
Sure.
earlier stuff.
Yeah, I mean, someone else who I'm kind of like I've drifted off from, but I was going to say the process reminds me about of is Trent and Nine Inch Nails, and obviously I'm like super hardcore Nine until like a certain point, and then oh, here's some more, which I feel
Yeah.
like you also benefit from, like that you seem to kind of like pick up where a favorite bands kind of dropped off a little, if you know what I mean, which is really good.
Interesting. The process was a good. So the process was actually the first thing that I wrote for this record. And not even for this record. The first thing that I wrote after finishing
Yeah.
Ghosts, and the first lines of that really encapsulate where I was at the time. The I feel good, but I'm trying too hard to hold on to it.
Hmm.
And with that song, uh, it almost didn't, as you know, almost didn't make it onto the record for a couple of reasons. Part of it was because it's the longest song on the record, and you can only fit so much time on a side of vinyl.
Yeah.
So it would be the obvious choice to theoretically go if we wanted to fit in two more songs as opposed to the one long one. Um, and also because because it was the first thing that I finished after Ghosts. It's the vocals are a little bit more hesitant.
Yeah.
I was still finding my feet in some ways. It's
Yeah.
a little less polished than everything, but and I think that works. Given some distance from it afterwards, it works so conceptually with the song itself of trusting the process
Yes.
of
Yeah.
letting
Yes.
and so it
And
starts out very fragmented and ends up very cohesive at the end. And it's like
during this
that's exactly what the
conversation,
song's about.
you must have said the process like what 5 times or something. So it's obviously
Yeah.
emblematic of something that's very much in your DNA at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all about the process, processing things and processed food. It's all in there.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you make a song that's that long, is it just that long because to do this and then it needs to do that and then it needs to that and then it turns out that long, or do you go in with the like, oh, I'm going to make an epic now, or
Oh, no. No, 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 no. It's always accidental. The way a song turns out is always entirely um like I don't go in thinking about how long it will be or how many choruses it will have or anything. It's much more, I'll lay one instrument down, put something else over top of it, and whatever it ends up, what parts repeating end up
Yeah,
repeating, which ones don't, and I sort of figure it out after the fact. And I always think like I'll go back and edit it. This is like a demo idea,
yeah,
and I'll end up going back and chop it up and do a proper recorded version, but it always ends
yeah,
up being what it is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I think it's
Oh, you're
refine these things, but I think also passing, as you say, trusting the process is key, isn't it? So you
yeah.
just whack it down and then finish it after, I guess. So next up, the one I can't pronounce.
Oneirophobia. I might
Yeah,
be
yeah. As many
mispronouncing for
times
all
as
I
you
know.
say it, somehow it won't penetrate. Just so yeah. So tell me
That's
something about that. Why is it so glitchy?
oh, wait, wait, you're frozen. You're frozen. Oh,
Oh,
are you
are you
back?
still there?
There you go. Okay, you're back.
Are you still there? I
Yeah,
think
you're
I'm
back.
back. That.
That was one I was. There's always a song on a record that I'm scared of ruining, because I do an instrumental track and I fill it up to the brim, and I'm like, if I put vocals on this, I'm gonna ruin it. For on the first record, it was Bijou, which I worked really well as an instrumental, and I was like, I'm never gonna be able to come up with a vocal line and lyrics that
Right.
do justice to this. Um, but with and that was Oneirophobia on this, but the layering of it, and I put on the bass, and the bass ended up being an almost like slow funk bass. Um, and then when Morgan came in and did the her end of the vocals, and she ended up,
Yeah.
I had a vocal line I wanted her to do for that, does your bed scratch the floor bit,
Yeah.
and she did that, and then she was like, I have an idea for a harmony, so she put that harmony on, and suddenly it was like it was almost like an old sort of girl group
Oh,
slow
right. Cool. Yeah.
soul
Yeah.
Motown kind
Yeah.
of feel in a weird way. Um, and I was like, okay, yeah, we didn't ruin it. That's awesome. Good. And then we and actually made it
Yeah.
better, which is what you look for, right?
And yeah, and I mean that's something you kept saying to me is that like you'll have some parts that you her to do, but then when Morgan comes to actually do it, she'll bring in these other parts that then kind of recontextualize how you see the song and approach it in the mix and
Yeah,
stuff. So
she's
that's
the blessing and curse of working with Morgan. Is she's hard to tie down for long enough to like sit down and record. And then when she does, and I think it's like it's out of I wouldn't say boredom, but I do think that she feels, although it's not technically diagnosed, that there's a ADHD that
yeah,
she deals with, and I think that might be part of it. She can't do the same. I'll ask her to do three takes so that I can comp something, and she can't do three takes the same. Whether it's a flourish here or a change of note there, she can't do the same thing twice. And on one hand, that makes it hell to edit.
yeah,
On the other hand, it means that like the Unfound is another example. The chorus of that second chorus especially, there's a
yeah.
layering of harmonies, and we didn't plan to have multiple harmonies on that. It just turned out that when I played the three takes she did along with the main
They're really
vocal,
nice. Yeah, yeah,
they harmonized beautifully with each other. So it was,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Awesome.
yeah, that
Well,
worked
it's
out
happy
really well.
accidents. Yeah,
Exactly.
happy
Always
accidents.
hoping
Yeah.
for happy accidents.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important part of making music. I think that people don't really understand that actually half the distinctive things that have kind of, the hallmarks of music throughout time have been like lots of them have been total accidents. And and not all through all this incredible planning that the industry seems to all do all the time and artists do all the time, and then it's like something goes wrong and that ends up being the thing that actually caught people's
Yeah. Well,
attention, you know
if I knew if
what I
I knew
mean. So
exactly
yeah,
what I was trying to execute, uh, and was able to then execute it perfectly, I would be so bored because where's the discovery process? Where's the creative process in that? I mean, there's the creative spark of writing the song
yeah,
initially, I guess, but like
yeah.
if I'm feel very lucky to not know what I'm doing a lot of the time because it makes everything exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think a bit jaded with all of it. Well, I guess we'll be still doing these in like 10 years and you'll be like, oh, I'm so tired of it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So then flowers.
I don't think I think if I ever got tired of it, I would stop. But I've also like been in bands writing songs for more than
Yeah,
half my life
yeah.
at this point.
So
don't
it's
think I'm
all
gonna get
about
bored of it.
the different ways of, yeah. When you get bored, you find a new way of being interested in it anyway, don't you? So I guess that's just
Yeah.
loving music. So then, tell me about flowers.
Oh, wait. Did you freeze?
We already talked about. We already talked about. Tell me, yeah, something else about it.
Well, I guess lyrically that's um the main sort of callback to the previous record about the um the past, letting go of the past, kind of thing, past relationship, past who I was in the past.
Yeah,
Um, and again through that sort of framework of of the dream. Because even after you're out of something, things pop back up at the strangest times, and in
yeah.
dreams or in random sort of like thoughts that are triggered by something or other. And so that was just kind of like a certain finality to it of like, okay, I'm acknowledging this and letting
Yeah,
it
full
go,
stop, draw a
kind of thing.
line, drawing a line.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, between Pinkhead Ben and previous head Ben.
Yeah. Blonde Ben is gone. Pink Ben is here to stay. I've actually got to dye my hair again today, so I'm gonna touch it up.
Are you? Yeah. In anticipation of those, is that your real hair color questions that you've been
Exactly,
fielding on the
exactly.
internet?
I
Yes.
dyed a little blonde streak here in the middle just to throw people off, but this is my
Right.
natural color, the
Yeah.
pink.
Cool. And then, yeah. So then the first time, ironically, wraps it up.
Yeah, that's that. That was another one of those ones. So I don't write love songs, just like unabashed love songs. Just no, I don't
Mm.
refuse to. It's not what comes out of me. I've written one once before. Um, Years ago, I was in a relationship with this girl Jane, who was a lovely human being. She passed away actually this few months ago.
I'm sorry
Um,
to.
and Thank you. But she's yeah, and we've been in contact just throughout our lives. But that was we dated very young. I think I was in grade 10 or
Mm.
something.
Oh
And
wow.
we're together for a couple of years. So that was the first like love song that I wrote, was a song called Untitled from the band Deep Six. And that
Yeah.
became very popular with our friend group, and we played it at an art gallery of Ontario the first time we played it, and people cried, and it was
Right.
maybe my one of my finer moments.
Right.
Anyway, and then years go by, and this time I don't know how or why it came over me exactly, but I was alone in the apartment. It was like 3 a.m. and I started writing and thinking about Morgan, and this just came out of me, and
Yeah.
I was like, well, I have to get this idea down. So I took just the single microphone and blasted the gain because I had to play very, very, very quietly, to not wake the neighbors up.
Yeah.
And that ended up being the core, the main vocal and guitar take of the entire song. That's why you
Right,
get
yeah.
the sirens in the background at one point. As much as I'd like to take credit for that, that's actually because I live near a fire station, and the window was open. And we built
Good
we
timing,
added the
guys.
harmonies around that.
You did register them as a contributor on the on the album.
They
But
asked for the
they're gonna
Allen
get
Smithy
their
credit.
yeah. I hope they're gonna get their
They were a little out of
PRS.
tune, so. But
Oh, it's off these days. Yeah.
but we yeah, so we built around that a little bit, but that's the core of it. And again, it was another time where it was like I meant to get the idea down
Hmm.
and then probably re-record it later. And it's not my finest vocal take, it's not my finest guitar take, but it was the first time I played the song all the way
Nails
through.
it, yeah.
It was a moment, and it just captured perfectly the sentiment of it. And I had to throw my hands up and be like, well, I can do it better than that technically, but I can't do it better than that for it to come
Yeah,
out
for what it
emotionally
actually
the way I want
is. Yeah,
it to.
yeah, completely. Well, I mean, there's many examples of that in music, like your classic ending song of what's the name, something in the way. Like it had to be done in the kind of like in the oh no in the studio room with him just hunched over, do it quietly, and then the band tread on eggshells and him on the recording, and
Yeah,
so I guess that is that. I personally feel like it's again going back to the Pumpkins, it's like the way that Luna finishes off Siamese Dream, and it's so totally an unabashed love song. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, this
yeah,
is like, but yeah, but really pulls it off. And also in the similar way that the Melancholy ends with like that kind of chunk of like mellow, kind of like send you off to sleep nicely songs, which
yeah,
largely love orientated, although one of them is Lily, weird one. But yeah.
yeah.
But
Well, and one of the conscious things about
sorry.
that too is, growing up on sort of 90s alternative rock records largely, they almost always ended either with a ballad or with a really upbeat, leave them wanting more kind of song. Um,
Yeah,
and the conscious choice that I made both on Ghosts and on this record was to end on a positive note. Um,
right, yeah.
so nothing but blue skies on Ghosts. It's like that's one of those
Hmm.
ones where lyrically it's quite
Sends
naive,
you
but
off.
it's a simple sentiment, um, and
Yeah,
positive. And this was the same thing where after this sort of like dark night of the soul, you have this unabashed love song, and yeah, I think I've gotten to the point where I never want to. This is such a large sort of metaphor for everything in life, but like I never want to leave things on a down note, like
right, yeah.
um, I always I always want the door to be open for something good to happen,
Good. Yeah,
so I think that that's probably that's something that'll probably continue through the records is like thematically we're gonna end on an upper.
start a little bit nervous and then and end on a yeah, go for it, guys. And then next record, you're like, maybe I got a bit carried away.
Yeah. Full stop. The divorce.
Nothing,
Like,
nothing but blue skies, guys. Actually, go slowly for a bit.
yeah. Yeah, no. The next record is going to start with a song called "Sitting in Divorce Court." Uh, it's going to be a
I
real
hope not.
bluesy number.
I hope not. I hope not, but I'm sure it would still be good, and I'd still want to put it out, even if it was. So,
Oh, like thanks for the tragedy. I need it for my art.
yeah, don't anybody tell Morgan. The, the yeah, cool.
Look, honey,
Wicked.
we
Well,
have
we've
to
got
break
through.
up simply because I have a record
Yeah.
to write.
The label have been pressuring me.
The label wants some
Yeah,
tumult here, but
it's all been a bit too smooth sailing.
yeah.
Yeah, never a fear of that. Yeah. Um, well, yeah. So wicked, awesome. We got through the lucky is only 8 tracks on the album, so we did manage to get
Yeah.
through track by track. We should probably wrap it up. Is there anything else you particularly? I mean, obviously you've got these gigs coming up. We should plug that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you're in Toronto, we're doing a 2-night stand on one is September 13th at the legendary Horseshoe Tavern, which, if you're from Toronto, it's amazing. You know that place. And it's funny because Morgan and I actually years
Right.
and years ago, we used to go on dates there every Tuesday night for their new music night. And we're playing a Tuesday night at the
Oh, cool.
Horseshoe. So it's a nice full circle thing. We're opening for our friends Showmance, who are this amazing sort of electro punk duo. I don't know how you describe them, but they're fantastic.
Cool.
Our friends Queens and Kings, who are an amazing, like, just raw. You think like PJ Harvey, Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, cool.
They do it beautifully and are such like show people that they're killer. And then Tarmageddon, who's coming down from the East Coast on tour
Cool.
as well. So we got the West Coast, the East Coast, us in the center.
Awesome.
Um,
Stopping
so
the
that's going to be
beef.
awesome. Exactly. And then on Thursday at the Piston, which is actually in my neighborhood here, another really cool
Yeah.
bar. We're playing, and that's also with Showmance and Tarmageddon. So same lineup minus Queens and Kings.
Right.
And then we're heading off to Montreal that weekend on September 17th, the Saturday. We're playing at Casa del Popolo in Montreal.
Cool.
And Montreal is like, I don't know, they're an artsy city in a way that Toronto
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes isn't. And like I love my hometown here, Toronto,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but whenever I've played in like sort of like the weirder bands and we've gone to play in
Hmm.
Montreal, it's always been really nicely embraced. So
Awesome. Yeah. So
hopefully
you're
people
keen
show
to
up to
see
that
how
one.
this goes down. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we got
Awesome.
band practice today for those shows, and
Was
we've
there
got some
one more
interesting
as well?
arrangements of some of the new stuff. There is another one, September 29th, which we're going to be hyping up a little more after these because we got the couple of
Right.
Toronto shows next week. But we're playing with Jason Pilling, who's an amazing singer-songwriter who I've been following since we started, basically.
Yeah.
He's one of the first people that we followed here on Instagram, and
Cool.
he does home recording and it just makes amazing songs.
Wicked.
And La Clem, who's this amazing uh, queer electro guitar. She's a guitar virtuoso basically,
Right. Right.
but has these amazing electronic beats
Cool.
and sounds. And I've seen her play a couple of times now, and she's just I can't believe it's one person on stage doing this, making these sounds. And I mean she's a fantastic songwriter as well, but like such a musician's musician. Both Jason Billing and Leclerc
Right.
are
Yeah.
both like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're real like they play their instruments in a way that like I'm a
Yeah.
songwriter. I'm not a guitar player. I'm not a singer, and these people are fantastic musicians, and I'm honored to play on a bill with them. Like
Awesome. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Wicked. Sounds really exciting. Like tons to. And you said you were rehearsing for that now, tomorrow, did you say?
Today, later on today, yeah,
Right. All right. Cool.
yeah,
Wicked. Awesome. And what's
yeah.
the lineup going to be for those?
That's gonna be the trio. Um,
Yeah. Wicked.
yeah, it's me on acoustic guitar, Morgan and I singing, obviously, and Osman, who's he's a great guitar player, period. But he's really, really, what he brings to this that blows me away is like a sense of texture. He
Right.
serves the song and brings like instead of playing leads and guitar, trying to make it rock and roll,
Yeah.
he gets exactly what the core of the songs are and helps
The
in
dynamic.
similar ways to like the strings on the record,
Right. Yeah.
this is almost
Yeah.
like that, but in guitar form. Uh,
Wicked.
Yeah, we've thought about full band shows, and we do want to put together like a full like a bass and drums and keys kind of band for some shows sometimes. But this
Yeah, yeah,
and that was originally the plan for these shows, but the last show we played at Seascape here, it felt as the three of it felt full, and it felt different enough to what other bands were doing that I think it served us more than hindered us to be the stripped down version. Um, and I'm really like I just wanted to explore more of that. Oh, you seem to be frozen. Oh, you're back, sort of. Are you back?
yeah,
Oh, there you are. Okay. Oh,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
still. Oh, so I can see
I
you, but I
think,
can't hear
yeah. I
you.
mean, I heard you say, yeah, yeah, bizarre,
Yeah,
isn't it? So, hear me now? Hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay, cool, yeah. So, yeah, it'd be so stripped down.
Yeah.
Wicked, yeah. Awesome. I'm sure really looking forward to seeing all of like, and you're playing playing a fair few songs from the record, aren't you? From kind of like a half and half-ish.
Yeah, because I mean, based on obviously the pandemic and everything, we never technically toured or played many shows for Ghosts. So it's a pretty good half and a half. And then, we have a
Yeah,
couple of singles that we put out as well that were outside of the records. And so we're doing a good mixture of our catalog.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think it'll be I don't know, I'm excited to be playing for people again.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, yeah, being honest, I did the one gig and it was like, oh, it's just so good to be back on a stage. Like it wasn't even do that well and I
Right?
didn't anything. It was just like, oh, it's good to be slow. Nothing if nothing else, you know. So, so
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, wicked. Yeah, the internet, yeah, we should probably stop anyway because we've been going for ages now. I think we made up for our lost time with the with but
Yeah, fair enough.
oh, yeah, you're gonna have some T-shirts and you'll have vinyl and CDs and everything at the gigs, won't you?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have the full
Wicked.
range of the Blackout Orchestra merchandise line.
Yeah,
Pretty soon we'll have the fragrances and the running shoes as well, but maybe not at these
yeah.
shows, but down the line.
Taking your lead from Woo Wear. Gonna.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm not saying the Blackout Orchestra smells good, but it'll be distinctive, much like our music.
Well, it can't much worse than Prince's fragrance "Get Wild," which it did actually smell like it was created by a creature of some kind. But yeah, it was not. It
It's
was
those
not great.
pheromones, man, those
Yeah,
pheromones.
yeah, it wasn't great. Yeah, maybe there are animals out in the wild that find it attractive, but I don't think they're human based. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so cool, wicked. Well, thanks for chatting with us. Anyway, that was cool, and yeah, everybody go and get either your Bandcamp if they're your side of the pond, and our Bandcamp if they're our side of the pond. And yeah, anything else to add?
Um, no. I
Yeah.
think I've talked to myself. I think I've talked too much. In fact, I've ruined the mystery. Uh,
Oh
so
no,
now
I've
we got to
said
break
too
up the band.
much. I haven't said enough. But yeah, yeah, cool.
Oh,
Well, in which
I
case,
could.
yeah, be excellent to each other, I guess, would be a good.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool, awesome, Ben. Nice to chat with you, and yeah, see you on another one of these pretty soon, I guess.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Take care then. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye. I'll press leave now, and because I'm leaving your one, aren't I? So.
Yes. And then I'll figure out how to close this thing without ruining it. All right. So it's going to be an awkward end to the video as I try to figure out how to end the video without deleting it. I guess I guess we're just gonna try. We're just gonna try.